right, welcome back to Checkpoint. The conversation is getting interesting now, and I'm seeing your tweets as well, and I believe they were running at the bottom of the screen, so we're getting through to your feedback in just a moment. That conference is taking place later this week, and that is why we have the chairs of constitutional commissions here with us to discuss the effects of devolution, the challenges and the successes. So let's talk money for a minute. Jane, how do we encourage counties to generate their own revenue and make, some more money at their level, as opposed to just waiting for, the trickle down from the national government?
As a commission, we do two things. The commission has been working very closely with county governments to, one, enhance their revenue administration capacity, particularly through automation. And in this regard, we've seen there are counties that automated following CRA guidelines and succeeded and did very well. There are others that attempted to do it and didn't do as well. And we have a third group of counties that have not automated at all.
Right.
And then in that regard, we also observe that even those that have automated, they haven't automated all revenue streams.
Okay.
So we're trying to work with them, providing guidelines, and where they need the support, we are normally available to hold. The other thing that we have done as a commission is in the formula that allocates money between the counties, we have a fiscal effort parameter. And in this particular parameter, it's meant to reward counties that increase or improve over their fiscal effort. So if a county is collecting more money from the previous year, then they get a little more in the shareable revenue in the coming years. And in this creates the incentive that, or at least we expect it to create the incentive for every county to increase their own revenue corrections over time.
Are they creative, or because there's automating your revenue services, which sort of ensures that loopholes where money is lost is sort of tightened up.
Yeah.
But are they creative in other ways? I mean, in the county in which we have Masai Mara, are they only just dependent on tourism? In other areas, are you seeing a sort of new level of creativity, saying, this is a new revenue stream that we hadn't thought about altogether? These new ways of making money.
So far, we haven't seen any new revenue streams except those that are defined in the Constitution. And like I said, even those that are traditionally defined, they still have lots of potential that is not even yet already tapped into by the county governments, particularly even in the area of property rates. This is one area where there's huge potential, but most counties haven't even updated the property valuation law, so they're based on some very, very, some are like last updated in the 90s, yet we've seen new properties coming up, particularly in the urban areas, and these are not yet tapped into. That's a big challenge for us.
All right.
But one of the other things we are trying to do is work with other institutions to see if we can work with counties to actually estimate the potential that if County X were to correct at its maximum, what would that revenue look like? So that in crafting this formula, we can already tell what's the fiscal gap. If County X could correct this number of billions and they're here, what then is a fiscal gap? And then how do we factor that into a revenue allocation formula so that we create or we kick in the right incentives?
Okay. I like the idea of incentivizing for those that have collected more money. Because I suppose it encourages the others as well. Mbake, let's talk about the relationship between the national and the county level. There's the intergovernmental, organizations or bodies, if you like. There's IBEC as well. It's been, well, to be fair, the relationship hasn't been as smooth as one would like it. What can we do to improve that relationship between the two levels? I mean, there's legislation, that's fine, but, legislation is one thing, as we've seen in this country on a number of fronts, but actually, just implementing it.
I agree that when we started, the relationships were even worse. And we saw this in the Kenya Law Reform Commission interaction with the counties. When the counties were established, the Commission looked at ways that they can help the counties in developing their legislation. And the first thing we did is to look at the fourth schedule of the Constitution, Part 2, which deals with the functions which the counties have competence in lawmaking. And we developed some model legislation which would assist the counties to craft the legislation. And we started organizing seminars, especially in the consultation with the transition authority. Now, when the Council of Governors, the Secretariat, was very much opposed to this in the initial stages. I remember at a time, we arranged for some technical experts from Canada who had drafting skills, and we wanted to train the county attorneys in developing legislation.
Right.
The Secretariat won't hear of that initiative. And after 3 weeks, these draftsmen had actually to go back.
Wow.
But over the time, we've seen the need of cooperation. In fact, individual counties are the ones which now started coming to us. Because a lot of the legislation had been declared unconstitutional by the courts. So we've seen changes. The other issue we saw is a lot of litigation between the counties and the national government. And this has actually been a cause of worry, and it has been discussed at the summit to the extent that the IGTRC was mandated to look into these problems, and they set up a task force to see how the disputes between the national government and the counties would be looked into. And there are some, there are some initiatives being looked at in terms of mediation and, informal dispute resolution.
Right,
to sort of...
So you're saying you've seen a bit of improvement, or quite some improvement in the quality of legislation that's coming out of the county assemblies?
Yes.
Because a lot of them were new, young people, who, are coming in and definitely want to do something for their communities. But as we know, the quality of legislation that would then help to, hold the county governments to account. Are you saying you've seen an improvement over the last few years?
Yes, we did. We have seen an improvement. As I said, when we did the first model laws, a lot of those, they were really templates, not to guide the counties in legislating this in these areas. But the counties still had to improvise them, to take into account their peculiar circumstances. And we have worked with them. They would develop the legislation, bring it to the Law Reform Commission, and we check through it, and then would point areas they required improvement. We also went to a big program of training the county attorneys. And also training. We had an initiative where we trained trainers so that you had county attorneys within certain regions trained, so that they could also train the others.
I see.
And as a result, we have seen some improvements.
Okay, that's good to hear. So we've talked about what's happening at the county assemblies, the Senate, but really the biggest custodians of devolution are the people. And citizen participation, as you know, Kagure, is in our laws, it's our constitution, it's something that's been encouraged. Have you seen that happening on a rather robust level? I remember speaking to, I think, the then governor of Nairobi County, Dr. Evans Kidero, and they were saying, they put up posters and say, so the county budget estimates are in, nobody shows up for the meetings. Then you hear from the county residents and they say, but all of that is technical jargon. We don't understand what it is, so how can we possibly participate? Citizen participation, has that been effective?
I think majority of citizens would probably answer in the not in the affirmative.
Right,
they would probably negate that particular assertion. There have been, I think, attempts to involve citizens in county government participation. But I also think that most counties are now in the process of developing their CDIPs, and as they develop their county development plans. It is so important to have various demographics within their various the specific counties contributing to this. And I think we have come to a time when we must define participation. What is participation?
So it's not just if we are all seated here that we have participated.
But because it is participation not only in the planning processes, but also in delivery. There has to be kind of a very robust feedback mechanism. The other thing when we talk about participation is also filling the offices or the jobs at the county level. The National Commission, the NCIC, did a survey all over the country and found that majority of counties in the last phase did not fulfill the guidelines or the requirements to fill the county jobs positions with 30% of persons from outside their respective counties.
What would you say to those that say, it can be difficult if you don't find people with the right skills?
I think that is a cop-out.
Is it a cop-out?
I think that's a cop-out. I think there are so many qualified people from Mombasa to Kisumu to Turkana and all over the country who are not necessarily residents of a specific county, who can bring a freshness of ideas and help the Public Service Board at county level to have a robust workforce. Other than that, it is also extremely important for every county to ensure that the various demographics and the minorities within its own county are taken into consideration. A number of the conflicts in the last phase had to do with the fact that a number of demographics and minorities within specific counties felt left out and marginalized. And that is going to become an increasing issue if it is not taken into consideration of going forward.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective of citizen participation in terms of just having the county governments have the face of the county, if you like. But then still on the issue of participating, I mean, I'll be honest, I have seen some of these county development plans for 2018-22, and they're really some serious documents with a lot of jargon. How do we enable citizen participation? Because some of those documents are really hard to...
If you will allow me, I would add that this is where community-based organizations and non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations come into play, because they are able then to render the complexity of some of the planning and the issues.
Even translating it into Kiswahili,
translating it, or even just translating it in simple, easy to understand layman language, so that people can go along. And let me tell you what also participation entails. Participation entails every citizen knowing what the promises of the county are. What have you promised to deliver for our county in these 5 years? And then holding their respective governments to account. Because if we do not know, how will we hold you to account?
Absolutely.
So I think that's part of what we public participation
is all
entails.
about. So
but I
knowing
think
so that
we are
you can be able to hold them.
defining and redefining it. So
okay, all right, Edward.
Yeah. Article 10 of our Constitution is a very powerful article. Apart from sovereignty, it then clearly states out what our national values are. And one of our national values, if you look at A, B, C, D, and apart from patriotism and all that, is public participation. Very, very simple. Now, what people should now be looking at this issue of public participation, it should be from the point of view of the public participation as a governance tool. It should be a governance tool. Now, what does it mean? If it is going to be a governance tool, we have other social governance issues, but primarily, because our Constitution is based on delivery, it is how the public how the public uses budgeting of our resources as a governance tool, because that's the core of public participation, because that's where the public should be able to express what they expect
expect
their leaders to deliver from them, because it is the public who decides, not the leaders.
That was the essence of devolution.
That
for
was the
them
essence,
to make the
that's the
decisions
essence, and that's
as
the
to what
point
they
where I'm
need.
saying public participation must be viewed as a public governance tool. Now, from that aspect, from my aspect and from my interest as Auditor General, I believe that we really must try and go back a step further. We've talked about educating, public education and all that, but I believe that we can do, and we individually must find a way how we can be also community leaders in public participation, especially from the point of view of governance and from the point of view of taking an interest of what is my county going to budget for my needs in this period. But that is a power which is given to us, to the public, not to our elected officers. Now, that's the problem we are having. Right now, what we are doing is the elected officers trying to tell us, oh, there's a public participation, come ye all, and we'll meet here.
So it should happen in the reverse.
No, so it's wrong.
Okay.
But then to do that, it means that we here must then also have a sense of community leadership. Because if you take any of our environment, you take my county, Sierra, I have a problem with the bridge. I have a problem with getting home.
True.
And yet, it's not only me. I am the Auditor General.
Right.
There is the doctor, there is the engineer, there is the what, there is the what, and we are the public. But then we leave that aspect of participation
so you're saying
to the lowest level.
Okay, so you're saying we're abdicating our responsibility to the elected leaders. Okay, we have run out of time, sadly. That time runs out very fast. I'd just like closing comments in less than a minute. I know you wanted to add something, Jane, if you can do that, and then also just tell us where you see devolution in the next 5 years. What one thing would you like to see strengthened and improved at the county levels? But carry on.
Okay, I wanted to chip in on the question of public participation. But one of the issues that we hear constantly from the executive, it's expensive, and that they don't have the money to facilitate public participation. So that has been the elephant in the room. How do you fund public participation, particularly in far-flung counties where you really need to move out of the headquarters to particularly reach the minorities? That has been a big issue.
Is there something that can be done by others, other than the government, to just improve that?
I think, like Kagwiri said, even
believe.
CBOs have a responsibility, and particularly even translating the material, because when you put it in a newspaper or in your website, and there are places with no connectivity whatsoever, how do you then say that you carried out public participation? And particularly in places where people can read or access this form of media. So that's a big issue. Going forward, I think there's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of excitement. Everywhere you go, you see previously very sleepy towns where there's a lot of robust activity. And I think it's really just tightening the rules heads, creating the right incentives at both at the executive and then empowering the oversight institutions to do exactly what they're supposed to do. I'm sorry, I need to rush us through because I also have breaking news I need to give our viewers. Mbage, very quickly, where you see devolution in the next 5 years. What one thing do we need to fix?
Well, we have devolved up to the county level, to the governors. I think we need to see the second phase of devolution, which is to the urban cities and the wards. So the governors have been bashing the national government of not devolving resources. I think they also now need to devolve resources to the lower echelons of devolution so that we can realize the dream of devolution to the lowest level.
Thank you, Mbage.
Given the little time we have, I would like to say that this year our conference this week is going to be in Nyeri County, and we would like to call upon the citizens of Nyeri County to come out numbers on the 6th to come and meet with us and tell us what they think about devolution and what they think about our respective mandates, so that we can have also a good discussion and a good dialogue, and we can come back with some lessons learned. Other than that, for me, I would like to see in the next 5 years less corruption, more accountability, and more bang for the shilling.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Interesting. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry we're out of time. Edward Oko is the Auditor General. Kagwiri Mbogori from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Mbage Nganga from the Kenya Law Reform Commission, and Dr. Jane Kiringai from the CRA. That's the Commission for Revenue Allocation. That conference is taking place this week. So please do that. I'd just like to bring